A leading legislative expert on the Democratic side is veteran lawmaker Dan Troy, who's the ranking member on the House Ways and Means Committee. I also spoke to him this week and asked him about Thomas's social media post about the high passage rate of tax levies by voters who also say they're frustrated at high property tax bills.
I was surprised at the approval rates at last Tuesday's elections on a lot of these levies. I mean, libraries pretty much universally pass, but they always do. Because I thought, how angry are the? Apparently, the anger was not portrayed in that. But again, I think it's like a lot of other things. You go to the citizenry, you explain to them why we need this particular increase. Although a lot of these were renewals too, so there's no increase in taxes. But and again, I'd like a better world where the state is picking up more of the freight on these things, so that they don't have to go to the voters for these property taxes. But again, that's the whole thing with our system. Is in Ohio, unlike other states, we can just set the property tax burden, and you don't really have any say in it. In Ohio, anything over 10 mills is subject to a vote of the people and all that, and so they chose to do so. And I don't know the rationale on each particular taxing entity, but obviously the voters were convinced that the need was there, or the need was there to either continue through a renewal levy, or the need was there for additional taxation through a new levy. But again, I think we still have to look at protecting or helping out in those as much as possible. I still would like to extend the 10 and the 2.5% rollback back to all levies, not just not just existing levies, and also again, through the state foundation formula, lessen the need for, in other words, you're not going to eliminate the need for property tax millage to support your schools, but let's lessen the amount of millage that maybe they need to ask for by fully funding that fair school funding formula.
There have been bills to eliminate replacement and emergency levies. Right. There's now a bill that's still in committee that would eliminate the mandate that a library levy that comes through trustees is presented to voters. With what Representative Thomas said in mind, that we can't protect voters from the tax increases that they vote them for themselves. Are lawmakers seeking to offer property tax relief by limiting the kinds of tax levies that voters see?
Well, that has been my complaint, is that we're talking about doing property tax relief, but the state is putting little or no skin into the game. We're basically saying property tax relief comes out of your budgets. We need to restrict the way that you can increase your revenues. We need to reduce even what they put in the budget, House Bill 96. My commissioners pulled the trigger on that last week, where they basically offered an additional 2.5% owner-occupied rollback and additional money on the homestead exemption. But that didn't come out of county revenues. That basically came out of the school district's revenues, the developmental disabilities revenues, the mental health Adams Board revenues, the senior citizens levy, et cetera, like that. So, if we're going to continue to have just one-sided property tax relief that says, no, the fault is all at the local level, so we need to basically reduce the amount of revenue that you have, or make it much more difficult for you to get the revenue that you need. I would rather see, the state do that. And again, it isn't a case where we don't have the money. I mean, we've given away $5.5–6 billion in state income tax cuts the last 5 or 6 years, and nobody's really asked for those, while people are screaming for property tax relief. So I think we need to continue to not hamstring the local entities if they need these dollars, but we also need to help out from our perspective from the state budget, so they don't have to go to the ballot as often or for as much millage as they particularly do.
Is this an effort, though, to avoid the state putting money in, that instead of putting money in, we'll limit what voters can see? And should voters have the right to approve these things?
Well, I think there is some of that. I mean, I even said that, how did we get to the point with the 20 mil floor that we exempted emergency millage and substitute levy millage from counting against the 20 mil floor? And I'm thinking, I don't know, maybe it was subconscious, maybe it was conscious. I wasn't here then, but maybe there was some feeling on the part of the General Assembly when the schools were saying, we've got to have more money. We absolutely are strained with trying to deliver our public education services without more money. And rather than the state write out a check and help out, they basically said, well, we're going to come up with a way where you can generate more money from property tax revenue by exempting these things that would normally count against the 20 mil floor. So again, I think there is some of that where the state, is avoiding having to, contribute to solving this problem, but is instead saying that we want all of the sacrifice. It's got to be a shared sacrifice. The state should put up some sacrifice here and help out financially. And yes, we do probably need some local government reforms, possibly looking at some consolidations or elimination of some overhead and all that. But it needs to be a shared sacrifice. I'm seeing too much right now. Until we got the $380 million put into House Bill 186, I haven't seen any effort by the state to do anything in terms of, and you look at where we're spending on property tax relief. In 2010, the state was spending $1.7 billion out of our GRF, General Revenue Fund, for property tax relief. Fast forward 15 years later, we are spending $1.8 billion in property tax relief. What used to be 8% of our general revenue fund budget going to local property tax relief is now down to 4.1% of our general revenue fund. So the state has kind of diminished its participation, just as it has in a lot of other things. Don't forget, this is at the same time, or during the same period, when the state eliminated the tangible personal property tax, which was a very important revenue source for our schools and our local governments, and they temporarily replaced it with the commercial activities tax, but that replacement is pretty much diminished. So, there's just been a continual kind of weaning away from this partnership by the state, and I think we have to understand that these are critical services that in many cases we mandate public education dealing with a community-based mental health or a developmental disability system. And, I think it's imperative for us to put more skin into the game.
Representative Thomas has a bill that would raise the approval threshold for levies from a simple majority to 60%, saying if a levy is going to affect everybody, then more people should be having buy-in on this. What are your thoughts on that?
We're a majority rule country. I think we tried something like that in August of 2023 to change the way we do constitutional amendments.
And that
in the
failed,
state.
yes.
I think the people have spoken and said, that again, if you just put those type of, in many cases, you just don't see 60% approval rate on. I mean, if you're basically saying that we're going to do whatever we can to block passage or block implementation of these things. Again, I would rather say, rather than make it more difficult for local entities to generate the property tax revenue they need to provide these critical services, the state should basically generate some revenue on our part to help them perform the functions that are critical to a civilized society.
There were $24 billion in property taxes collected last year, according to Policy Matters Ohio. And there's this effort now to try to abolish property taxes through this volunteer organization that's hoping to put it on next year's ballot.
Sure.
Should lawmakers be talking about what to do if that actually does make the ballot and pass?
Well, I think we're all thinking about it. I mean, I'm not optimistic, or I'm not pessimistic that I think it will pass. I think that because, first of all, normally when you get a statewide ballot issue, you got to have some money behind the campaign to do it. I don't know who's going to be contributing to a campaign to do this. Secondly, there's no replacement revenue stream plan there. And I think, people are going to be, then probably during the campaign, they're going to be told, this is going to be critical to your local police department, your local fire department, your local senior citizen levy, your developmental disabilities programs, and things like that. Now, should the state be, I don't know if the state would ever be in a position to replace $24 billion in revenue and all that. But I think it's something that if this makes it to the ballot and the voters approve it, I obviously think it's something that we're going to have to deal with. But I think in other states where this has been attempted, in North Dakota, it failed because they went out and said what you'll probably need is about a 23% state sales tax to replace the revenue that property taxes generate and all that. So, I mean, obviously there will be people who just, go in there and, slam dunk a yes vote and say, we need to get rid of this. But again, I think a lot of it is being caused by the fact that some of us have been calling for property tax relief for a long time, that we've kind of been dragging our feet on this. So I think we need to be able to tell people between now and November of 26, if this gets on the ballot, that we are continuing to work at this problem, and we are continuing to work at it in bigger chunks in terms of reform than what happened with 186 and 335.
The Ohio House and Senate are both set to be in session the week before Thanksgiving, so action could happen on property tax-related bills. Each county sets when property tax bills are due, with some deadlines hitting right after the first of the year.